Hello, everyone. So I am here with Stephen Jaffe. He is running to represent the 12th District of California. And he's not just like any other congressional candidate's campaign, because his campaign is especially significant to progressives because he is challenging someone who needed to be challenged a really long time ago. So, Stephen, can you tell us who you're challenging and why you decided to challenge this individual?
I am challenging Nancy Pelosi in the primary next year. And the reason I decided, well, there's multiple reasons for that. First, I'll tell you why I'm running for any office. I was very much inspired by Bernie Sanders in 2016. I'm not a youngster, and I actually remember every presidential election since I was a young kid. The first Eisenhower-Stevenson election is the one I remember. I remember coming home and telling my parents because his campaign slogan was "I like Ike," and they were Democrats, and they said, "No, you don't." And I didn't know. I don't know what they were talking about. But the reason I bring this history back is Bernie was the first presidential candidate who really resonated with me, that I really felt connected with and very inspired by. So after working on several local campaigns, I went to work for Bernie. And eventually I was recruited by the national campaign. I traveled from San Francisco to Nevada to help legally supervise the Nevada caucuses, which turned out were absolutely chaotic, but kind of a microcosm of what happened around the country during the primary process. So we all woke up on November 9th in a collective state of shock, I think, over what had happened. And I had listened to what Bernie and other people had said about don't just talk, get out there and do something. So I threw my hat in the ring. My opponent is Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is, I think, as much as anybody else, except maybe Hillary Clinton, and maybe even more so now, the icon of what I call the establishment corporate Democratic Party. And in my opinion, she is significantly out of touch with her own constituents here in San Francisco. She herself and is perceived as a national political figure. She's the minority leader of the House. She was the Speaker of the House, and I think she's forgotten who she represents. And it doesn't appear to me she shares the values of her constituents, of which I am one, and how they view the world politically in 2017 and probably will in 2018. So I think she's vulnerable in that respect, and that's a long answer to your short question.
And that's fantastic, because I think that learning the inspiration as to why someone decides to run is really important, because you were motivated by Bernie Sanders' campaign, and clearly you're inspired by Bernie Sanders. And I think that to have someone with the ideals of Bernie Sanders challenge Nancy Pelosi is really important. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about is kind of a two-pronged question here. First of all, you're kind of running on the campaign of four issues. One of them is single-payer healthcare. So I'm sure you know about the bill HR 676, which is basically the bill that would take Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All issue and bring it to a national stage. It would give us a single-payer system. So you support single-payer, but Nancy Pelosi also states that she supports single-payer as well, but yet she won't co-sponsor HR 676, and she stated recently that she doesn't even believe that Democrats should start pushing for that issue. So for my question, I want to know, would you actually co-sponsor HR 676? And why is it that you think Nancy Pelosi refuses to get on board in spite having the rhetorics, that's seemingly in support of single payer?
I don't believe Nancy Pelosi supports single payer. There's multiple reasons for that. The main reason is that even though she is a renowned fundraiser, the source of her fundraising is, guess who? Healthcare industry, insurance companies, people who have a significant stake in not having single payer insurance come into existence. And she does not support single payer. One of the things I say in my campaign and in my interviews is the two rarest words you hear politicians speak are the words yes and no. And when she is asked, do you support single payer? If you can ask me that question and I'll give you a one-word answer, yes. If you ask her that question, you get a 5-minute long-winded, evasive, and obfuscates. I can't say the word, but
it's a hard obfuscate.
Yes. And she doesn't answer the question. The last time I heard her speak about it was a couple of days ago, and she's using evasive and hedge words like single payer option. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Option to what? What's the other option? She will not unequivocally commit to single payer because she doesn't believe in it. She doesn't want it, and that's why she won't sponsor it. She will lose her funding from these for-profit insurance companies and healthcare companies.
Right. And I think that you're kind of speaking to a bigger issue that has to do with campaign finance. But before we move on to campaign finance, so just so that way viewers are clear, you would co-sponsor HR 676 if you were elected?
I don't know the number. That's John Conyers' bill, I think it is.
Correct, John Conyers' bill.
Absolutely.
Excellent,
Yes,
excellent.
Yes, my one-word answer is either take your pick, yes or absolutely.
That's perfect. Okay, so yeah, you talked about, why Nancy Pelosi won't get on board and the need for campaign finance reform, and this is one of the signature issues of your campaign. So can you talk about why campaign finance reform is so necessary right now? Because I think this is a really confusing issue. So can you describe why you see it as one of the most important issues of our time?
Well, at the risk of getting too lawyerly about this issue really flows from the horrible Citizens United case, during which the Supreme Court, in a unwise and very bad move, equated a corporation with a human person and said if a human person can give money to campaigns, so can a corporation. Of course, the corporation being a person is a fiction. The idea of a corporation itself is a fiction. It's legally created. It's not a living human being. So now you have corporations with essentially unlimited funds funneling their money through PACs and other organizations, in some cases laundering their money so it's impossible to tell from where it comes, and then giving it to candidates who support their point of view. That makes it possible for people like the Koch brothers and others to essentially buy votes. There are some races where the spending by one side is 20 orders of magnitude bigger than the other because of these floods of money that come in that way. I believe eventually, for campaigns to be fair, there's going to have to be some kind of public funding of campaigns so that everyone is playing on a level playing field. Because right now it's fixed. If I'm elected to Congress, I will look into how federal legislation can fix this. It very well may be that there has to be movement on the Supreme Court, but sometimes Congress can make legislation which alters or softens the impact of some Supreme Court decisions. I know that to be true. I call this practice dark money, when the source of the money is being hidden. That's called dark money. And if I can if you can indulge me for about another 60 seconds, here in San Francisco, I want San Francisco voters to know I'm very proud. Last October, our little tiny Democratic club here, the South Beach District 6 Democratic Club, I wrote a resolution that was passed by our club requiring chartered Democratic clubs to reveal the sources of their income and their money. That's because one of these clubs here in San Francisco had taken in almost $1 million of dark money and distributed out to what are called, they call themselves moderate Democrats. They are really Republican light, builders, developers, banks, like that. So that resolution was to target all clubs and make them show where they're getting their money and how they spend it. Well, then I went to another club, gave a speech, and they adopted it. Then the San Francisco Democratic County Central Committee, which is the Democratic Party of the entire city, adopted a similar bill requiring all clubs to do it and itself to follow that. So this has been escalating here, and there is now pending in the California legislature a bill, AB 14, statewide reporting of dark money. So it's a really growing movement here, which I hope I had a little bit to do with incubating it way last October in our little club resolution. So that is a central plank of my campaign, getting rid of dark money and finding a way that all candidates compete for public offices on a level playing field.
And you're not just talking the talk, you're actually walking the walk, because what I've noticed is that there's a certain number of corporate Democrats that have co-opted the language that progressive use about wanting campaign finance reform. However, they still continue to take PAC money and corporate money because they say you can't show up to a gunfight with a knife. But you're actually doing something that shows that you don't have to run a campaign and take PAC money. So can you explain how you're actually getting your money for your campaign?
Well, I am incredibly gratified. You know, I'm a novice politician. This is the first time I've ever run for office, and I'm still not used to having people who've never met me send me money. We are well over 800 individual contributors now in a little over a month. I think we've been just doing it about a month. The contributions are coming from all over the United States. More than half of my contributions are out of state. And I mean all over the United States. And that sends two messages to me. One is that people agree with what I'm saying on the issues that I'm talking about. But as much as I would like to say everyone is sending me this money because I'm such a good-looking, wonderful fellow, the truth is it has not much to do with me this early on because I'm a stranger. They don't know me. The contributions I'm getting are from people who want to unseat Nancy Pelosi. And when they see that I seem to agree with their point of view, at least superficially, they said, that's what I think, they send money. As time goes by and I get to be better known, I hope that they do it on account of me more so. But it's been very gratifying. How are we doing it? We have a website, Jaffe, Jaffe, for Congress with the number 4.com. We have a Facebook page, Jaffe for Congress, also with the number 4. I have a Twitter account, and I'm not sure what else I have. You're reaching the end of my universe of tech knowledge here. But that's essentially how we are doing it. We don't have TV ads. I'm not putting on big events yet. So it's been a real, genuine grassroots kind of effort in terms of fundraising. And if anybody is interested, just go to JaffeForCongress.com or Jaffe for Congress on Facebook.
Right. And, I think that the reason why you're getting so much support nationwide is because it's not just that you're challenging Nancy Pelosi, but unlike a lot of corporate Democrats, at least for myself, and I know I speak for a lot more progressives, as we learn more about you, we tend to like you more. So one thing that I found out about you from a tweet that you posted is that you not only support a $15 minimum wage, but you've stated the harsh truth that not many people are willing to acknowledge, is that in certain areas of the country, $15 isn't enough. I mean, the standard of living is super high. So you've talked about, pinning it to inflation in certain ways and making sure that in certain areas they have a living wage, regardless if that's 15 or higher than 15. So I think that you are really a candidate that inspires progressives, and you're the real deal. So let me ask you this, because I know that for a lot of people right now, if they can't donate money, then what else can they do? Is there any option that we could potentially phone bank for you or knock on doors for you if we're outside of the state? I mean, how can we make a difference and support your campaign?
Well, when people tell me, I'm sorry, I really love what you like, but I'm unemployed right now, we're really struggling, I can't send you money. What I tell them to do two things. One, I say, send me $1. Send me a $1 contribution, make your statement. show yourself as a donor. I really don't care. That $1 means more to me than $500 from somebody who's making a lot of money. Just sticking your name out there like that. I also say write me an email or put it on the website that you would like to volunteer. I have people who will read that and watch that, and you can expect to be contacted if you'd like to do that. So that's my answer to that question.
Well, that's fantastic. Look, I won't take up too much more of your time, but is there anything else that you'd like to say? Any last, pitch that you'd like to say to my viewers?
Well, I want your viewers to listen to what I say mostly. There's a lot of political rhetoric that goes around where people really don't pay attention to what the politician's saying. And I think the issues that I'm addressing are very important. They're important nationally, and they're important here in San Francisco. And nationally, I think the election is important because of whom I'm opposing. I'm opposing the person who is the most representative, I think, of the corporate establishment in the Democratic Party, and the person who I hold partially responsible for the fiasco of 2016. I guess the last thought that I'll close with, it bothered me when the DNC emails came out, and it was shown beyond any reasonable argument that Bernie had been essentially cheated out of the nomination. And Hillary was obviously the beneficiary of that kind of action. But it bothered me that other people in the Democratic Party never stepped up and said, you're right, we shouldn't have done it. We need to fix this problem. And they didn't. And they're not. And they have never expressed any guilt, remorse. In fact, they argue now, they're lawyers in a case in Florida, as you know. They argue we have the right to do that. We have the legal right to lie, cheat, and steal Bernie out of the nomination. And I find that morally despicable. So I guess that's how I'd like to end.
Well, and I'll kind of add this. I was looking at your platform, and you actually include DNC reform as part of your platform. So I noticed that you want to abolish superdelegates. And your platform doesn't just appeal to, progressives in terms of what we're really fighting for. I mean, the three biggest issues right now are Medicare for all, Fight for 15. You're talking about, an all-encompassing platform that takes into account progressives from across the country. Criminal justice reform. So I would encourage everyone of my viewers to look at his platform, because it's just comprehensive, and it's fantastic. It's as progressive as you can possibly get. So, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show. One more time, can you tell us where to find you?
Yes, it's Jaffe, Jaffe, the number 4 and the word Congress.com, or Jaffe for Congress, spelled the same way, on Facebook. Those would be the two best ways.
All right. And when is the primary taking place in California?
In about a little over 13 months, believe it or not.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's already May. A little over 12 months.
12 months.
Yeah, it's a long way to go. But because I'm so unknown and she is so well known, we thought it was wise for me to jump in now and try to get people acquainted with who I am.
Right. This is a true underdog story. This is a David versus Goliath situation. So I think that was a smart move. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed talking with you.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.